Loneliness is at an all-time high. But isn't that strange given how connected all of us are now? I mean, with social media, we're able to see way more people than we would have normally seen in our lives. Yet increasingly, you hear people talk about how loneliness is being surrounded by people yet feeling utterly alone. During COVID lockdowns, rates of loneliness skyrocketed and demand for online entertainment soared. It's no surprise then that live streaming, which usually features one person entertaining an audience online by doing a variety of things like gaming or chatting, had its biggest growth during those years. Especially in East Asia, pandemic lockdowns have passed, but social cultural factors which exacerbate loneliness still exist. In a culture where people are time poor, have little energy for leisure, and even less money for courtship, there is little one can do with the downtime. In this environment, online entertainment, especially in the form of tuning into a live stream, is easy, accessible, and low cost. Live streaming in East Asia, therefore, has become a dominant force of entertainment, social interaction, and more. On the surface level, it does seem like a good thing if people are feeling lonely and they're able to fill this need through live streams. Streamers make great companions, but the intimate nature of streams makes it ripe for parasocial relationships to occur. The term parasocial is often talked about with streaming and refers to a one-sided relationship we form with someone who's usually unaware that we as individuals exist. Think celebrities, media figures, and fictional characters. It was first put forward by Horton and Wall in 1956. However, in 2021, Coward and Daniel Jr. expanded on its definition, proposing that live streaming is actually more of a one-and-a-half-way relationship. Streaming is unique in the context of parasocial relationships because you actually have a chance at getting noticed by your favorite streamer. It's still not like a two-way relationship we have in real life with our friends or family, but it's much more reciprocal than coming out of a movie and Googling someone's entire life history. Given how easy it is for viewers to form attachments with streamers, this is quite a well-known topic within the streaming community. At times, it is cautioned against, and at times, it is exploited. In looking at the different streaming genres today within China, Korea, and Japan, we will see how different the experience can get depending on what need you're trying to satisfy and how parasocial one's attachment is. To start off, we're going to look at China and delve into the murky world of vtubers, the Chinese word for female streamers. Attractive female streamers flirting and being suggestive with their audiences is most definitely not exclusive to China, but this industry is so popular that it warrants a deeper look. So let's get started with China, into the world of pretty girls, lonely men, and the exploitation of them both. Live streaming is popular in the West, but it's had another level in China, and that's the very first thing we need to know. There are 344 million Chinese netizens on streaming platforms. That is more people than the population of any country on earth, other than China itself and India. So how did live streaming get so big? Well, from a social cultural perspective, we already hinted at the intense work and study schedules in East Asia. In big cities, the crushing pace of the never-ending hustle culture leads people to go online for entertainment, being too exhausted to do otherwise. In rural areas and lower-tier cities, life may be slower paced, but a lack of entertainment options in real life also result in people going online. The combination of both rural and city populations seeking entertainment online has led to a boom in industries like live streaming. One top executive at a live streaming company states, Chinese people lack companionship, rarely have occasion or places to spend time, money, and energy. And that pretty much summarizes things. Now, live streaming is a huge industry with many different genres. The one I'm focusing on today is one that is predatory and encourages parasocial behavior. Again, I need to emphasize that this isn't something that's specific to China, but it is a huge industry there. It is on vtubers, which is the Chinese word for female streamers, and already we can see some cultural differences. If I were to talk about Pokimane or 39 Deaf, I would introduce them as streamers. Yes, they're women and yes, they stream, but I wouldn't introduce them as female streamers. However, in China, this differentiation is made clear through the term vtuber, which also carries a strong stigma. Here's a quick taste of what media headlines with the word vtuber is like, so you can see how the public perceives them. Pretty vtuber forgot to turn off webcam and broadcast the entire footage of her undressing. Man charged with embezzlement, all to please a vtuber. Vtuber, who's an anti-drug propagandist, proves to be a drug dealer. The last one is a tale as old as time. But as we can see, the term vtuber in Chinese society is very intimately linked to the male gaze and carries some sexual connotations too. The way the media chooses to present vtubers and the events they highlight come to influence how we perceive them. The industry is problematic, and it's not just because of vtubers, unlike what we're led to believe. This kind of media bias though is evident in many articles we'll come across, and half the time we don't even realize it. Social media makes this even worse because algorithms are designed to show us information that fits in with our existing beliefs and to shield us from differing perspectives. That's why it's so important important to be informed on not just what you're consuming, but also where it's coming from. And that's exactly what today's sponsor, Ground News, does. Ground News is an app and website that compiles diverse sources to help you piece together the bigger picture. I'm a big supporter of their efforts to help us navigate the media's chaotic landscape, which is why I'm thrilled to have them sponsor today's video. Whilst doing research, I actually came across the story of Twitch expanding its ban on gambling live streams. Only 12 articles were published on it in the last 3 months, so if you don't get your news from these sources, you likely wouldn't have seen this. Ground News even shows that most of these articles come from center-positioned sources that are highly factual, telling me the story isn't likely so sensationalized. And when we look at how different articles headline the story, we can see two narratives, one focusing on the ban, the other on viewership being down 75%. Very interesting takeaways on the same event. As I cover China a lot in my videos, I like that on Ground News I can search up Chinese sources and see the political affiliation and factuality. I really appreciate that they include these sources as many platforms have removed them. All in all, I'm such a big fan of the transparency and power Ground News offers to us as consumers, especially given the current media climate. Personally, the way I've consumed news has changed, and if you would like to try this out for yourself, go to ground.news/ini to subscribe for as little as $1 per month or enjoy 30% off unlimited access. Thank you Ground News for sponsoring this video. Coming back to social cultural factors, there's some specific ones that will help explain the popularity of the infamous noodle boy industry in China. China's one-child policy, along with the age-old sexist tradition of favoring guys over girls, has led to a gender imbalance in China, where in 2020 there were 70 million more men than women. These men, left without a partner, increasingly turn to technology to satisfy their need for social interaction and intimacy. And the noodle boy industry, which features girls broadcasting their lives and encouraging parasocial relationships with their audience, quickly becomes a virtual girlfriend experience. The popularity of noodle boy streams have been a source of controversy in China because of the tie with sexual content. Chinese scholars have described the genre as vulgar, while scholars outside of China like Caucus have termed it as an entire industry of virtual girlfriends. Behind the scenes though, we'll find that the industry is predatory, but it exploits everyone. First, let's get a better understanding of the industry by looking at a true story of a noodle boy in China. She goes from earning 2 yuan a day to over 100,000 yuan a month. That is what some people's annual salaries are. Almost all of her income from that month comes from one person, someone called a big brother or 大哥. This interview was done by Story FM. I'll have them linked in the description, and it really highlights the problematic nature of the industry, which we will dissect right afterwards. So get comfortable because this is a ride. Our story starts with Xiao Xiao, an ordinary and bubbly girl who worked an office job. Xiao Xiao didn't enjoy the corporate hustle, and though she wasn't big on watching streamers, whenever she did, she always felt a bit envious of how easy their life looked. You just sat there, talked, played games sometimes, and the money would come rolling in from donations. Plus, you had all these fans who adored you. Xiao Xiao ends up quitting her office job and she struggles in finding a new role as she spends her days at home. One day, she receives a notification on her phone, and it's a generic invite for people to start live streaming. Xiao Xiao looks at it and thinks, you know what, why not? So she clicks on it and starts streaming. Straight away, viewers pour in and comments flood her screen. She wasn't expecting this many people, so she runs to the bathroom, intending to make herself look more put together. She ends up staying in that bathroom, streaming for 2 whole hours. And when that was over, she felt this huge rush of dopamine. Her first stream ever earned her 2 yuan, which wasn't much, but her viewers encouraged her to continue. And that was all the motivation she needed. Xiao Xiao learned everything there was to streaming. She bought lighting equipment, did the proper setup, studied how other famous noodle boys greeted people and interacted with chat. As Xiao Xiao began streaming full-time, she still wasn't earning much, but she was okay with that. Instead, her biggest worry was on not boring her viewers. It turns out noodle boys before had ran into the same problem and they had it all figured out already. The answer was to do PK. PK stands for player killing, and it involves 2 streamers who verse each other in a challenge. However, whoever wins the challenge is determined by viewer votes. So if you have a sing-off and one girl obviously sounds worse than the other girl, but her viewers vote more for her, she still wins. The whole vote system is important to note because votes cost real money, and the incentive for the viewers to vote is not just to have their streamer win, but also have them avoid the punishment for losing. Keep this punishment rule in mind, it's quite crucial, but Xiao Xiao doesn't go into it in her interview, so we'll talk about this more afterwards. Xiao Xiao therefore starts doing PKs. During one of the matches, she versus a girl who was doing the absolute bare minimum, yet her fans were still going crazy over her. She's puzzled at first, but she quickly comes to realize it's because this streamer has a great figure. This girl was literally streaming on easy mode, so at the end of the day, maybe that's all the viewers cared about. Xiao Xiao changed up her attire to wear more revealing clothes, and her streaming content became more suggestive. The number of people watching her soared, and people stayed much longer in her broadcast. She was finally getting big. However, she was still missing something, or more specifically, someone. A dager or a big brother, someone who will spend so much money on you that most of your income is from them. When Xiaoxiao meets her first dager, she's completely unprepared. He sends her a donation that's more than what she would make in an entire night of live streaming. And then after the stream, he wants to chat privately. She's shocked, but she accepts the request, and he immediately video calls her to tell her that he likes her, he's rich, and he's single. Xiaoxiao didn't know how to respond. She didn't know then that having a dager supporting your stream meant that you had to send them good morning and good night messages, that you had to flirt with them a little in private. This dager comes into her stream a few more times, and then he disappears. Xiaoxiao fumbled the bag in more ways than one, but she had learned her lesson. When the next dager comes into Xiaoxiao's stream, she feeds him fantasies. As soon as she stops streaming, she begins her offline service with him. They talk for hours about life, struggles, everything and anything, and Xiaoxiao just wants the call to end. The dager also starts sending explicit pictures and messages, and Xiaoxiao grows increasingly uncomfortable, but she doesn't say anything about it. In April, Xiaoxiao makes 100,000 yuan. Her earnings in this 1 month was double her annual corporate salary, all thanks to the dager. Xiaoxiao continues to encourage his fantasies until the dager wants to meet up for real. She freaks out because honestly, she had just wanted a sugar daddy without providing any sugar, which is probably the case for every YouTuber. She ends all communications and the dager is left heartbroken. His solution to fixing heartbreak? Hopping onto a different YouTuber stream. Yeah. As for Xiaoxiao, after her sky-high earnings in April, May took a big hit without that dager there. She wasn't making nearly the same amount, and it felt like to her, no matter how long she was on stream for, the amount she made didn't even compare to a few minutes with that dager. Her audience started saying she was no fun anymore, and Xiaoxiao's mood plummeted. Xiaoxiao never met another dager, and she also stopped streaming. Looking back, she says she had given up a lot of herself in exchange for viewers, money, and fame. Though she has quit streaming, she wonders, after experiencing the high of such big paychecks, how could a normal office job salary ever compare? Xiaoxiao's summary of the industry in this Story FM interview was that, here, if everyone plays their role properly, you can get whatever you want. And so that is Xiaoxiao's story, and really our first look at what this industry is like. So far, it feels like the YouTubers are the ones who are exploiting their lonely audience, feeding them promises they have no intention of carrying out. Whilst this is the case here, Xiaoxiao is one of the lucky ones because she has the luxury to regret this experience and chase other opportunities because she is educated. Many YouTubers are not like Xiaoxiao. You may have seen images of content farms and agencies going around in China trying to capitalize on the live streaming boom. These agencies don't target women like Xiaoxiao. Instead, they go for young girls and women who are disadvantaged, like coming from a rural background or being poorly educated. Some of you might be thinking, okay, so they're from a disadvantaged background, but couldn't this be a good thing? We often see cases about how through live streaming, people who haven't benefited from China's economic advance, like rural farmers or less educated individuals, making it big because of the internet. And that is true. Live streaming has helped tremendously in lifting some disadvantaged individuals out of poverty, providing opportunities they never would have had before. Hence, you see headlines now like China's poor no longer beg, they live stream. But is it right to equate day in a life as a farmer in rural China content to another disadvantageous situation, like being a single mother in the countryside and then having an agency tell you your only way out is to stream yourself in a very specific and provocative way? To expand on this point, I will introduce the idea of aspirational labor and desperational labor. Aspirational labor was proposed by Duffy through looking at female content creators and exploring what makes them post on social media platforms. Because when you first start out, you're putting out content, but you're most likely not making any money off your work. So why do it then? It's because these girls or women carry a forward-looking view. They want the lifestyle of an influencer, so it justifies the unpaid grind now because it's necessary to get to where they want to be. Hence, aspirational labor. Duffy also highlights the entrepreneurial nature of this work and how usually this career is tied to one's passions. Desperational labor, though, is what Wang puts forward as a foil to aspirational labor. She argues this especially for the case of girls live streaming in the Chinese context. Wang states that the decision to become a YouTuber is often out of desperation. She gives examples of YouTubers that she's interviewed, like a divorced mother of two who states, "The environment is sleazy, but I think I can endure it. As my manager said, doing live streaming may be the only desirable choice for a divorced woman who has to take care of two children. If I can have daggers supporting me in becoming a big YouTuber, my difficult life situation will be changed." Through her response, we can clearly see that for women in disadvantageous positions, live streaming is considered one of the only legal ways to make a large amount of money in a short amount of time. Agencies romanticize YouTubers' work in this way, saying it is easy, but as we could see from Xiaoxiao's story, there is more that goes on than meets the eye. Even then, Xiaoxiao doesn't tell the full story. If you remember, Xiaoxiao mentioned the the existence of punishments during PKs, but she doesn't go into detail of what it is. This is the other side to unusual board's work, because female streamers don't just sell emotional intimacy, they also pimp out their misery and humiliation. This is called maichan. An example of some of these punishments could be putting a trash bag over their head, spanking themselves on stream 100 times, and waxing out body hair with tape. All of these activities elicit feelings of shame and at times distress from the streamers. Whilst it's true that punishments have to be something you don't want to do, why do they choose such specific degrading acts? If you haven't realized it yet, the noodle boy is not the main character of her stream. The main character is the dage, the big brother who funds her. One noodle boy who was interviewed says that if she performs a dance and the dage says that was bad, the whole chat will echo the same, and even she herself would join in by putting herself down. The same thing is happening here. By choosing a punishment that is intentionally upsetting, the noodle boy sets herself up perfectly to become a damsel in distress. Therefore, even if she loses, the dage can feel bad and come swooping in like a hero by donating a heap of money to make the noodle boy feel better after her loss. The performative nature of PKs evokes very real feelings of misery from the noodle boy, and one manager in the industry pitches the punishment stage by saying, "This is your chance to show off your fragility and misery to move viewers." Agencies therefore are leading girls to believe that it is only by being provocative or being helpless that would get men to donate to them. In internalizing this belief, girls justify the profiting of their misery in objectifying themselves and in presenting themselves to fit the male gaze. That's why these girls give consent to a punishment they don't really consent to every time. Looping back to the comparison on aspirational versus desperational labor, a big difference is also in how these creators start out. Duffy's exploration on aspirational labor is relatable for many content creators in all sorts of genres, being gaming, fashion, or who knows, social cultural essays. All this content is posted at first because the creators behind them are passionate about it, so it's a hobby worked on after class, after work, and even on the weekends. The important thing is, most creators don't start out dependent on their content, but it's different for neutral boards because they are all in to make it work. From the moment you sign with an agency, you're expected to stream for 8 hours a day for weeks on end. You're dependent on people donating money, and the fastest way to get donations is to self-objectify, self-humiliate, and to feed your viewers a parasocial fantasy. In addition, because maintaining a close relationship with your dager is essential for your earnings, neutral boards will start using manipulation tactics when they sense they're losing them. It's common for neutral boards to immediately reveal distressing information when they notice their dager is absent from their stream, and some even collapse directly on camera. These forms of emotional blackmail and guilt tripping are extreme, and they work. One dager who was interviewed stated that when he sees this, he will come back to give the neutral board donations, but his reasoning is interesting. One part is because he doesn't want to see them cry, as he finds the pushiness of neutral boards annoying. But the second reason is because he doesn't want the other viewers in the stream to think he has no more money left to spend. So for the daggers, it's not just about the intimacy they receive from neutral boards, but also the respect they command in chat, since all the other viewers know he's basically funding the whole thing. If one day he doesn't donate the same amount of money, he loses the admiration he holds in the chat, because you're no longer a dagger if you have no money. The thing is, whilst many daggers truly are very well off, a great amount of them are not, yet they still donate enormous amounts. The motive behind such big expenditures is shown through this exchange with a loyal viewer. After donating, does the noodle boy interact with you? Yes, she will read out my name and say thank you and that she loves me, things like that. How does it make you feel? Amazing, like I have power, like I'm superior. I feel like I'm better than every man in her chat. I feel like I can rule the world. The transactional culture of neutral boy streams and the streamer's facilitation of intense parasocial relationships can easily lead to daggers donating more than they can afford, and in extreme cases, tragedies occur. In 2020, a man sold his 3-year-old daughter for 80,000 yuan and then proceeded to donate almost all of it immediately afterwards to his favorite streamer. The complicated relationships formed between neutral boards, viewers, and daggers through live streaming reveals how ideas of love, intimacy, and gender are changing in modern China. Men are not just satisfying the loneliness through streams, but they also get to demonstrate masculinity through outgifting other Patreons and coming in to save their neutral boards when they're in distress. For many neutral boards, emotions are now a commodity to be auctioned, and the calculated vulnerability they practice reveals a dark side to how technology may have changed the way we approach interpersonal relationships. It is as Xiao says, as long as you play your role right, you can get anything you want. But what does it cost you in order to play that role? It's a heavy start to this topic, so I hope you guys are all having a little comfort drink or a snack. We were very deep in the parasocial rabbit hole of streaming, but streaming can provide company in a non-exploitative way. I mentioned having some nibbles because this next section might make you guys hungry. It's time to look at Korea and how mukbangs took over the world. If you've walked into a restaurant before, seen an elderly person eat alone and felt sad for them, well, that makes two of us. But have you ever wondered why? The fact that it's someone elderly eating alone definitely adds to the sadness for me. But disregarding age and the person, what about feeling sad because you're witnessing someone eating alone? When we're looking at situations like this, a large part of how we feel is honestly just projection. Because that elderly person could be having an amazing meal. We're the ones who viewed it a certain way. If you come from a culture where families always spend time together using meals as bonding time, seeing someone eat alone will seem a bit lonely to you. But on the other hand, if eating together wasn't a big deal for you or your family growing up, then seeing someone eat alone wouldn't necessarily mean they're lonely. Already, we are beginning to see some curious ties between culture, food, and loneliness. In this section, we'll be looking at mukbang, and I promise there's more to this genre than just videos of people putting cheese on everything. If you've never heard of mukbang before, let me explain. Mukbang comes from the Korean words 먹는 and 방송 and refers to live streams of people eating. Mukbang has become such a global phenomenon that it's in the Oxford Dictionary, with some of the biggest channels in mukbang like Tona having 30-something million subscribers and over 1 billion views on their most popular video. Mukbang is evidently very popular on YouTube. The content here is usually edited and condensed to just someone eating their meal without much talking. However, in Korea, mukbangs originated as a live stream, and that's our first key point of differentiation. The fact that mukbangs were broadcasted opens up the experience to a more conversational and intimate format. But this raises some questions. Why live stream yourself eat, and why did people watch this? By looking into this question, we'll also see how mukbang content has changed and how it's turned from a sweet thought into yet another topic of controversy. For the first point, if we want to understand how mukbang came to be, we need to take a deeper look at the culture. You'll notice that in some places, if you eat out, people order for themselves. And then in other countries, the norm would be to order a bunch of dishes for everyone to share. In Korean culture, food sharing plays a very big role. The idea that food is meant to be shared is apparent if you eat Korean food. One example being banchan, which are Korean side dishes that are meant to be shared by everyone, so it's very communal. Another popular example is having K-barbecue, where everyone cooks on the same grill and shares the same food. Food sharing also occurs at big events like weddings or big milestone birthdays. Because Korea is a collectivist society, a lot of traditional customs highlight bonds formed between the community, and this is facilitated by food sharing. Sharing food is also a way of sharing 정. 정 is a very cultural concept, and it's usually best understood through examples. But let me give you one interpretation first. 정 is a sense of collective social responsibility. It's a warm and fuzzy idea of everyone being tied to everyone in society, so we should look out for one another. Let's illustrate this with some examples. 정 is your neighbor noticing and fixing your crooked tie for you before you go. And it's the bus drivers in Korea greeting passengers and reminding them to hold on tight, as opposed to having a silent, bumpy bus ride. There isn't really an equivalent for 정 in English. This is due to Western societies being more individualistic, whereas the idea of 정 is very much rooted in collectivist values. That also means there are many similarities when you compare within East Asia. 정 in itself is derived from the Chinese word 칭. In Chinese, this word is more about the feelings you hold in your relationships, and there's also a sense of reciprocation. For example, doing things because they're a family, that's 칭칭, or because they're your friends, that's 요칭. You wouldn't really consider strangers as much, unlike the Korean 정, which is very much Oh, maybe I have found an English equivalent. In Japan, the same character is pronounced jo, which refers to emotions. When we add the character ning in front, ningso refers to compassion and a value that's also rooted in community. For example, bring back souvenirs for coworkers to show that you've thought of them. Therefore, amongst the East Asian cultures, 정 is a very shared concept, though there are still slight differences. In Korea specifically though, 정 is much more woven into the identity of Korean people. Food sharing is therefore important to Korean culture because it facilitates 정, and you can also see these ties through Korean greetings, with the greeting 밥 먹었어? Meaning did you eat? Often being used as a greeting in itself. Since eating together is so important, eating by yourself or 혼밥 has been seen as a social taboo in Korea. However, the stigma associated with eating alone is a lot better now, one big reason being the rapid individualization of Korean society. 1 in 3 households in Korea in 2021 were single-person households, and this number is only projected to increase. As more and more people live by themselves, eating becomes an increasingly lonely thing, and this leads us to the emergence of mukbang. Mukbang first started almost 2 decades ago and gained popularity on a live streaming website called Africa TV. The live streaming aspect of mukbangs provided an experience of eating food together online to cope with the isolation of physically eating alone. Related to the idea is the word commensality, which refers to a practice of a group of people eating together. Digital commensality is exactly what mukbang provides, and the conversation carried out during live streams between the streamer, known as a broadcast jockey in Korea, and the viewer restored a sense of intimacy while eating. Mukbang's emergence in Korea had a lot of social cultural ties, but this may have gotten lost in translation as the genre exploded in popularity worldwide. Mukbang videos, as we mentioned, have taken over YouTube, and fans like watching these videos for a whole bunch of reasons, but not all of these reasons are good. I do need to give a trigger warning now before we proceed, because in the next part I will talk about eating disorders. If you would like to avoid this topic, please skip ahead to this timestamp. Social and cultural factors have led to the emergence of mukbang in Korea, but there are some more straightforward reasons as to why it's popular. Other than benefits of companionship and social interaction, which comes with watching almost any livestream, mukbang watchers also comment on being entertained, like enjoying the food challenges, ASMR sensations, which is when you get tingly feelings from hearing certain sounds, educational aspects like learning recipes and watching how food is prepared, visual aspects such as watching attractive people cook or eat, and last but not least, a vicarious aspect where you watch someone else eat and it feels like you're eating too. This last part is the part related to eating disorders, so again, if you're uncomfortable and you're still here, please skip ahead. Watching someone eat and feeling like you're the one eating has a lot of connotations. The first big one is the shift of the mukbang genre, which was created to alleviate loneliness, now becoming a way to alleviate hunger. Mukbang comment sections are frequently filled with comments that reveal societal pressures in maintaining a certain body weight, as well as a mixture of envy and admiration towards mukbangers who eat a lot and still remain thin. If you haven't watched mukbang before, these are some typical thumbnails found on YouTube, and there is a lot of food. The mukbanger will usually finish all of it, displaying binge eating behavior, and viewers also expect them to eat a lot. Mukbang videos can therefore skew our view of food consumption and thinness, because mukbangers seem to eat so much and never gain weight. Therefore, viewers frequently question how this is possible. Do mukbangers skip meals just to eat one big meal a day? Do they work out a lot? Is it a metabolism difference? Or do they make themselves throw up afterwards? Regardless of how, many mukbangers perpetuate the narrative that you can eat all this food and not gain weight, which seems impossible to most of us. This is only made more apparent by what they eat, which are often high-calorie foods. Research done by Kung and others analyzed 6,000 mukbang videos, and the most popular food eaten was fried chicken. Out of these videos, 84% of them featured binge eating behavior. Though mukbangers eat a lot, they never show any discomfort with eating that much food. Broadcast jockeys used to feature big meals in their live streams so they could stream for longer. But in a condensed 10-15 minute video on YouTube, it's just the mukbanger eating the whole time, non-stop. With eating being the central focus of mukbang YouTube videos, there will undoubtedly be a lot of comments on the mukbanger's weight and their relationship with food. Strand and Gustafsson's paper in 2020 highlights the relationship between mukbangs and disordered eating with a range of comments such as envy and amazement. How the hell is this girl not fat? I simply breathe and I gain 5 pounds. And another similar sentiment, very eloquently put, bruh, she eat 8 carb rice, 20 eggs and gains nothing. I eat a piece of fruit and gain 4 zillion pounds. Don't come at me for not reading the number out properly, I know you don't do it inside your head too. Some viewers aim to explain how mukbangers stay in shape, citing fitness workouts. He bikes over 200 miles and lifts 6 times a week. Other viewers openly discuss theories of eating disorders. This sounds cynical, but I wouldn't be surprised if most of them purged after eating. 10,000 calories is a ton, especially if you're an influencer and need a perfect body. Heaps of mukbangers chew and spit or purge too. When it comes to viewers who perhaps use mukbang for unhealthy eating practices, this comes down to 2 extremes. Using these videos to help restrict food intake and being influenced by mukbangs to binge eat. We can see mukbangs being used for dieting practices through comments like, he eats, I lose weight, I'm eating through you lol, and I haven't eaten a real meal in 3 days, so this is what I eat. On the other hand, some viewers attribute the binging behaviors due to mukbang. Mukbang made me binge food in larger amounts. It normalized it for me, so I stopped watching them. I literally blocked the channels that come up in my recommended feed. And after 2 years in recovery, watching mukbangs triggered me to relapse. Although the majority of people find mukbangs to be entertaining, there is a minority that view the content and then used it in an unhealthy way. Mukbang's emergence in Korea had social cultural ties that were lost in the process of it going global. Moreover, the format of mukbangs going from live streams to condensed edited videos only further highlights the food eating and binging process. Many longtime watchers therefore lament mukbangs turning from what was initially a sweet thought, providing company for Korean people to eat alone, to now an international trend that fuels binge eating and other eating disorders. When it comes to mukbang content, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it, but it's on why you watch it that matters. Whilst mukbang currently is quite controversial, its emergence in Korea held deep social cultural values, and I'd like to think that each video we see now still carries some of that meaning implicitly. Now there's only one more live streaming genre I want to explore. If noodle war streams sold intimacy and mukbang streams provided comfort, the next form of streaming bridges a fantasy. For the final part of this video, we will be looking at Japan and the rise of vtubers. In all these sections so far, we've talked about feelings of loneliness, and it would still be an understatement for me to say that it is a problem in Japan. It is legitimately a huge concern. The Legatum Prosperity Index ranked Japan in the top 20 in terms of economic prosperity, but in terms of social capital, which measures how strong professional and personal relationships are, Japan ranked 141st out of 167 countries. How can a country be in the top 20 for its economic strength, but rank almost in the bottom 20 in the world for interpersonal relationships? There have been many indicators signaling growing loneliness in Japan, a stressful work culture steeped in overtime, a high number of single-person households that continues to grow, and a cultural shift in leaning into technology to fill social voids. For example, the therapeutic robot Paro is used to provide company for the elderly, and you have romantic companions like Hikari, Azuma. These options were marketed more for one-on-one interaction, and for communal interaction, live streaming was a tried and trusted choice. In 2016, technology would come in again to really change up this industry. Change came in the form of a YouTuber by the name of Kizuna Ai. She made history because she wasn't just a YouTuber, she was the world's first virtual YouTuber, or VTuber for short. How do VTubers work? They're made of 3 components. The first is a 2D avatar, which is Kizuna Ai as the viewer sees her. The second is the Nakano Hito, meaning the person within, referring to the voice actor. And the final component is the rigging equipment that transposes the Nakano Hito's expressions and actions onto the 2D avatar. Kizuna Ai's design, modeled off the anime girl aesthetic, brought to life a fantasy of getting to interact with anime characters that had the same personality and depth a real person has. As a result, VTuber live streams emerged as an alternative to real person streams, and here the otaku subculture and community was more vibrant. However, for all that Kizuna Ai did, it would be wrong of me to have you guys think that she was groundbreaking because she was the first virtual being in Japan. Japan has a history of virtual idols. Kizuna Ai was simply the first virtual YouTuber. Back in the mid-1990s, you had the first virtual idols appear through Tate Kyoko and Terai Yuki, but Japanese virtual idols only became known internationally through Hatsune Miku. Hatsune Miku was a Vocaloid, or a singing voice synthesizer, and musicians, animators, and other fan creators could remix her into their works. This allowed her to be shared within communities and around the world. Japanese scholar Fukuoka Toshiro emphasizes the cultural context behind Hatsune Miku and the likes of virtual idols as part of a Japanese tradition that ties souls to lifeless objects. The tradition that he is talking about here is Ningyo Choruri, which is Japanese puppet theater. It's a form of traditional Japanese performance art where 3 people covered in all black would operate one puppet, and a narrator would bring the story to life. Japanese researcher Shirai adds onto this as he states that VTubers are like a new form of choruri. When an audience enjoys the puppet performance, there's a suspension of disbelief. They don't think, oh look, 3 guys making some puppet move. Instead, they accept an illusion of puppets as characters of their own. A similar mindset is adopted when viewers watch VTuber live streams, because we all know there's a real person behind the avatar, but the stream accepts the virtual character for who they are. The ease in accepting this is expanded on further by Kobayashi, who sees VTubers as a sort of digital kigurumi, which is a costumed character, like these onesies that had everyone in a chokehold in 2014. Imene Kozawa then expands on the link between kigurumi and VTubers by stating that it traditionally represented a desire to transform. So given this cultural context, the desire to be a fictional character embodied by VTubers is not unusual in Japan. For those that do want to express themselves in the virtual world like a VTuber, I have some bad news for you. Unlike other live streaming genres, VTubing has a high barrier to entry. This is because being a VTuber is costly. You have to get someone to draw and animate a virtual avatar for you, and then also invest in the right rigging and streaming setup. That's why many big YouTubers that you'll see are not independent, but instead signed to an agency. Another perk of being with an agency, other than them covering these costs, is that they can invest significant amounts of marketing budget into a new VTuber's debut in order to ensure the VTuber will have a fan base. If this sounds reminiscent of the idol industry to you, it's because it is. Many VTubers have a debut stream, and when the VTubers retire, the final stream is called a graduation. One of the biggest VTuber agencies, Hololive, makes it a point to debut their VTubers as idols. Just like how idols are marketed to love their fans, VTubers are positioned similarly, and therefore the infamous idol dating restrictions or dating taboos also apply to them. For example, Hololive terminated one of their biggest VTubers, Ruha Rusia, from a scandal that started with a leaked message, which seemed to indicate she was dating someone. Although in this case, I do need to emphasize that part of why there was such big backlash was the fact that Rusia actively encouraged intense parasocial relationships with her fans during the streams, and she even had engagement rings included in her merch. Therefore, the dating scandal was much more severe in her case, because those who felt the most betrayed were those who had also formed the strongest attachments to her, which she had encouraged. Japan's strong idol culture had also previously been integrated in other genres, such as gaming, with virtual idol games like Love Live and The Idol Master receiving a lot of love from the Japanese public. So importing the idol culture over to VTubers makes sense, though we can see it also comes with many of the same restrictions. More generally though, the appeal of a VTuber isn't just with how they have an anime aesthetic or how they're presented, but it's also in VTuber personas. VTubers under big agencies like HoloLive or Nichisanji often have set personas and lore. The idea is that you can browse through the streamers under these big agencies and choose the type that you like most, both in terms of looks and personality. And then when you go onto the stream, the expectation is that the Nakano Hito will act in character for most of the stream. Now that we've looked at the cultural context and have an overview of the VTuber industry, let's take a deeper look at what it's like. First, let's take a look at it from a streamer's point of view. There's actually a concept here that's relevant to not just VTuber streamers, but streamers in general, and even you and I. It's called self-presentation, and it was theorized by sociologist Irving Goffman in 1959. Self-presentation refers to how we consciously appear to different people. It's literally like this tweet saying, "I like your personality. Yeah, thanks, I made it just for you." Some people might consider this being fake, but another researcher, Schlenker, argues that we shouldn't see self-presentation as something that's manipulative, because self-presentation involves portraying a version of yourself that's still accurate. In relation to streamers, streaming is a constant depiction of self-presentation. Viewers tune into the stream wanting an experience that feels authentic but is fun at the same time. So streamers need to balance being real to themselves and being performative. Honestly, streamers have it tough. In terms of an experience more specific to VTubers, research done by Taylor in 2022 looked at English-speaking VTubers on Twitch, and there were some great insights. Many interviewees mentioned that after finishing a stream, it was actually quite jarring to see their face reflected in the mirror. As a VTuber, because you're constantly looking at your 2D self on stream for hours and hours, that slowly becomes how you perceive yourself. So coming back into the real world can be disorientating. Streamers also mentioned being very grateful towards their communities, but some interviewees brought up how their experience with viewers was very different to how people treat them in real life. One streamer, referencing the parasocial and toxic online behavior they've encountered on stream, says that people are so outlandish on the internet. I've never had this problem in my life, not once, not until I started VTubing. What the streamer observed is termed by Sula as the online disinhibition effect, and this is largely because of the anonymity the internet provides. Unlike in the real world, because your actions aren't tied to your identity, there are far less consequences. Therefore, viewers are much more likely to express thoughts or actions that wouldn't be accepted in real life. Further, if viewers develop a very intense parasocial relationship, they may think their actions are acceptable because they think they are much closer to the streamer than they actually are. Another observation from one of the streamers was that they felt like a portion of their community was incredibly lonely. Whether they were missing a romantic partner or just some kind of social interaction, it was clear to them that they were using VTubers to fill that gap. Whilst the streamers in the interviews all said that they did not condone parasocial relationships, many VTubers do present a girlfriend or boyfriend experience. Agencies will also often encourage parasocial relationships by presenting the streamers as subjects of romantic fantasies. We can see this again through merch. Normally in relationships, marriage is seen as the ultimate end goal, and here you have it, marriage merch. Finally, something that is very unique to being a VTuber is how despite their online fame, the Nakano Hito's identity is something that is kept very hidden. This is both a pro and a con. In terms of pros, evidently the Nakano Hito is able to receive a lot of the benefits that come with having fame without many downsides. Nakano Hitos are able to experience a tight-knit community, fans that adore you, a job that you enjoy, and still have privacy when you go out. But this situation is definitely a double-edged sword because of two reasons. First, it's crucial that your real-world identity is not leaked, because that is what maintains the illusion of your VTuber persona. If you're an independent VTuber, things could be different, but under agencies, Nakano Hito identities are kept secret, largely in the corporate interest for preserving this illusion. The community and viewers recognize this need for privacy, so people don't go digging for information, and discussions or attempts to dox VTubers are banned. For the streamers themselves, the need to maintain that privacy means that a big part of their life online is probably kept hidden from the people they know in real life. Now let's look at it from a viewer's perspective, and I'll summarize some of the great findings by Lu and others here. These points mainly revolve around creativity, connections with anime, memes, and comparisons with real people. First, viewers pointed out that through VTuber streams, they felt like they were able to interact with anime characters. This comparison isn't just due to aesthetics, but also because the personas and backstories given to VTubers often resembles the fictional world, like being a voice demon or a Grim Reaper's apprentice. Therefore, for many interviewees, tuning into a VTuber stream was like watching weekly episodes of an anime. Several viewers also commented on the creativity of VTuber streams, and that they felt it was of higher quality than real person streams due to more thought and planning being given to it. Meme culture is also really big with VTubers and their communities. Memes include screenshots from streams or clipped moments during streams.
Agora, my dog died. Let's go! That's a joke, right? Please tell me that's a joke.
When comparing VTuber streams with real person streams, viewers note a difference when it comes to money, as VTubers asking for donations was seen as more acceptable. For example, VTuber Kagura Maya has a persona that's enthusiastic to make money, so she will often ask for gifts during streams. How convenient. And because it's a set persona, viewers don't find it awkward or see it as transactional when she asks. Furthermore, viewers liken gifting VTubers to paying for an in-game purchase, rather than tipping a real person. Some interviewees also confess that, at times, watching real person streams would make them jealous of the streamer because of the easy money that they got. One interviewee says, "I don't like to watch real person streamers, such as beautiful girls singing. I think they are snobbish. They only ask for money from viewers without putting effort into their streams." Many interviewees also mentioned a sense of distance from watching VTubers because of them being in a virtual world and viewers being in the real world. And if we think back to that response on soliciting money, it sounds like the distance felt from watching a VTuber helps in terms of donations, because there's less of a direct comparison to be made. That being said, I really do think streaming is a lot harder than people give credit for, especially if we're in a consumer role. If our main purpose is to enjoy something, then it's natural for everything to seem easy, because we're not the ones putting in the work. Like, streaming probably looks easy because the streamer is doing a great job at making things look easy. And whilst the association of VTubers with anime remains strong, there's actually a lot of diversity now in terms of VTuber avatars and content. And this genre is still quite new, so it'll be very exciting to see where things go, especially as technology continues to get more advanced. For instance, VTubers right now don't really interact with their virtual world, as their 2D backdrops are exactly that. But if they could do more things within it, that could be really fun. Maybe this should be Mark Zuckerberg's next project. Streaming is a very fascinating topic to look at, especially through a social cultural lens, because it's such an interactive medium. And all these communities being formed reflects a lot of our surroundings and how we interact with one another. I think genres like mukbang and VTuber streams has deeper cultural roots than, say, NewsReport streams, but they all serve to fulfill a need. And by looking at each of these genres, we got to witness the different kinds of bonds being formed, mediated through a digital space. The NewsReport genre facilitated intimacy in China. Korean mukbangs were first streamed to provide comfort, and VTubers bridged that gap between fantasy and reality, providing a new way of interaction. Common to all of these live streams are the relationships that are formed between viewer and streamer. It's one that feels more intimate and real. Because of this, streaming takes parasocial relationships to the next level. Does a 1.5-way relationship lean more towards a one-sided one or a mutual one? Popular streamer Ludwig makes a really great point in saying that streamers cannot reciprocate everyone's interactions, but the relationships that are formed within the community between a viewer and another viewer can absolutely be meaningful and a genuine one, and these should be encouraged instead. My 2 cents on this topic is that with streamers, you spend a lot of time with them, but be smart on who you spend your energy on. That brings us to the end of this video. It's kind of a continuation of my last one on parasocial relationships, so if you haven't seen that one, I think you'll like it. And for those who have seen it and commented, "Where was VTubers?" I hope you all enjoyed this 40-minute video because it was sparked by your very valid call out. Finally, in the last minute, I want to thank you all for 100k subscribers. What? I love making these videos, sometimes a bit too much, so thank you all for being here. I also made a Twitter and Instagram if you guys want to see me more than once every 2 months. Sorry. I will warn you guys though, my personality is a bit different when I'm not doing video essays. I seem like this, but I'm actually like this, so follow at your own risk. If you're still here, thank you for watching all the way until the end. Let me know which part stuck out to you the most. I feel like I'm still digesting the NewsReport stories. That really hit me hard. Last time you guys were also shocked when I had an NBA reference in my video, so this time I'll leave you with a page from my diary in 2017. This was in the middle of my exam block and I had a few days off, so I was very proud when I wrote, "Watch Double F stream for 6 hours today, hehe XD. So I guess this play on being parasocial really is about me. Thank you all again for watching, I really appreciate you guys. Please subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!